This is a story about a girl and a guy and a German city called Munich. They share their adventures with another guy and a girl. Welcome to Day 7 of Caps and Braids' Munich trip.
You're seeing our Munich expert Jared buying the train tickets early that morning. Riding the train is a serious business here in Germany, when in Munich.
As we waited for various trains, we discussed some unusual subjects, like socks. Jared pointed out that he wears short socks, Braids wears normal socks, and Cap wears long socks. And Melissa led the conversation where we all told stories about poison control having to be called for kids eating questionable substances. Good times, good times.
We were on various train lines for over an hour, so Cap decided to get in some morning exercise after we had eaten so many pastries and rich Austrian food. And after the trains that morning, it was standing room only on the 15-minute bus ride. We were glad to share some smiles and levity before the trains and bus dropped us off, because our destination this morning was a small town 19 miles northwest of Munich. Today, we saw Dachau. Only Jared had seen Dachau before today. He had the foresight to register us for an 11 o'clock tour. Our guide was a German university graduate who spoke English very well and who asked for us not to film or photograph anything more until the tour concluded. We respectfully complied. This was by far the most powerful day of our trip. Cap explains.
"79 years ago, my grandfather stood at this bridge, overlooking this water. And then he was pushed through these gates. He was a talented 18-year-old named Manfred who lived in Berlin, but on this day in December 1938, he was stopped on a train headed to Brussels, Belgium, while on his way to visit his dad. His father, his mother, and his girlfriend at first knew nothing of his disappearance. And like 10,000 other Jewish boys and young men, he was made to witness severe acts of brutality on these drilling grounds. Prisoners were condemned to sentences of public beatings, losing meals, or pole hangings for the smallest infractions. From 4 or 5 in the morning, sometimes until late at night, men stood in the cold doing roll call or Rapportführer, and were permitted to leave only when every last man of the assembled thousands responded correctly to their number being called. My grandfather Manfred stayed in barracks like these. Too many men to a bunk bed, with chronic issues of lice, fleas, and disease. His arrest came immediately following the pogroms of Kristallnacht in November of 1938. And now 11,000 Jewish men arrested just as he was were stuffed into facilities designed for 6,240. Hundreds of prisoners from one barrack were given only seconds to use 2 sinks and a small number of toilets to preserve daily hygiene. It was wintertime in Germany, and men were not allowed to walk with shoes on the cold floor. It was impossible to not lose weight immediately. The work for prisoners was grueling, continual with no rest day, and often at a running pace. Manfred was made prisoner in Dachau right here, inside what was Barrack 14. Surrounding his building would have been the dozens of barracks that no longer exist we envisioned on our silent walk. My grandfather was among the most fortunate. After 3 weeks in this hellish place, he and thousands others of other Jewish men were released 3 days after Christmas, on the condition that they leave Germany. He and my grandmother wasted no time. They were married immediately and were miraculously able to receive an affidavit to leave, first to Great Britain and then to America. But most prisoners here would never have such a miracle. In the years following Manfred's release, hundreds of thousands of prisoners were subjected to far worse beatings, death sentences, and conditions of overcrowding and poorer sanitation. Dachau was the oldest continuous in-use concentration camp the Nazis operated. It was originally built just after World War I as a munitions plant, but on March 23, 1933, a few weeks after Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, Dachau became a concentration camp for political prisoners and undesirables. Even so, it was not until January of 1942 that poison gas and firing squads systematically targeted people immediately arriving to the camp. So many terrors and lies perpetrated in this place. It gives one pause to think how grateful the prisoners of Dachau were to see the liberating American soldiers who came on April 29, 1945. At the time of Dachau's liberation, my grandfather, Manfred Isserman, was a 24-year-old sergeant and an interrogator, working for the American Army himself as it freed prisoners across Europe, prisoners among whom he might so easily have been numbered. Manfred would later go on to be a leading interrogator in the Nuremberg war trials and the American Army war trials at the war's end.
Monuments and tributes have been erected to remember the more than 41,500 human beings who were murdered at Dachau. There was a Protestant memorial, a Catholic tribute, and even a Russian Orthodox one. And of course, a monument to commemorate all the Jews killed or tortured among the more than 200,000 people who experienced the torment of Dachau or its subsidiary camps. Today, all students in Bavaria are required by law to visit this place, to see firsthand what horrors were carried out in their homeland. As one monument stated, "May the example of those who were exterminated here between 1933 and 1945 because they resisted Nazism help to unite the living for the defense of peace and freedom and in respect for their fellow men."
It was a long trip back from Dachau, a solemn bus ride and a train ride back to Hauptbahnhof. Along the way, we marveled at how prevalent and influential American culture has been in Germany, especially in the world of entertainment. Sure, we found some very stark differences between American and German cultures while we were there, the efficiency of the national train station being one of them. But seriously, slap some German words off a usual movie poster in Munich and you're almost home.
We disembarked at the train station in order to satiate our growing hunger. The first time he had been in Munich, Jared had eaten at a popular Greek restaurant called Paros. Now it was our turn. We'll be honest, customer service, not so good, but the quality of food, perfect. Lamb, beef, french fries, and salad. Oh, and our final course of the meal.
So, Jared, what is this stuff?
Ouzo.
And what is ouzo?
Licorice alcohol.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
It's a double shot too.
Don't sip it?
Yeah, you can shoot it.
Oh,
Nobody wants to do it.
I just want to taste a little bit. That actually kind of burns.
All right, Jared.
I'm gonna don't film it because I will not make a pretty face.
It wasn't so bad. I didn't make it.
I don't like licorice. It's a shot.
But I think your tongue goes a little though. Might be
How could we not include another episode of Learnin' German? These were some of the most commonly used words or phrases from day 7.
Delicious, köstlich. Grandfather, Großvater.
Apartment, Wohnung. World War II, Zweiter Weltkrieg.
Munich is a city of artistry and history. There was still so much we had not seen, and we were leaving early the next day. We reluctantly headed back to our apartment by train. Our final evening in Munich had come to a close.